2 years ago, I went to Mexico City. And if you've never been, Mexico City is built on the remains of one of the largest Aztec cities of the time. And so you have to confront a lot of very complicated and difficult historical questions when you're in Mexico City. The main cathedral of the city, which is the primatial cathedral of all of Mexico, the head church of that city, is built right next to the ruins of the Grand Aztec Temple, the largest temple that the Aztecs had at the time. And once the Spaniards were fully in charge of Mexico, they did not allow the Aztec religion to continue. And so that temple is in ruins. It's still there. You can tour it, and I did. And at the end of that temple, there's a museum all about Aztec civilization, all about Spanish influence, and I didn't know how they were going to deal with the difficult historical questions. Every museum like this, at some point, they have to make a statement, and you're always like, what statement are they going to make? What this museum said is that after a time, what remained were no longer Spaniards and no longer Aztecs, but something new, that a new people had emerged from the encounter between the Spanish and the Aztecs. And I thought that was a pretty good way of doing it, because you talk to Mexicans today, and there were way, way more Aztecs as far as like population in Mexico than were up here. And so there had to be a lot of intermixing. They didn't do the reservation thing that we did up here in the United States and Canada. And so most Mexicans today have both Spanish and Aztec history. Many Mexicans are Catholic and proud Catholics, and so they have to contend with their own history. What does it look like to be this offshoot of both people? And I thought the fact that the museum said something new emerged was a really important way to recognize the dignity and self-understanding of the Mexican people at the time, today and even then. Where do we go with that? Well, the Mexican people have had to define for themselves what it looks like to be this new people, what it looks like to be a new nation. And if you know Mexican history, and it's hard to know Mexican history because there are like 3 different revolutions and I can never keep them straight. But they kind of go back and forth. They've been very deeply Catholic, and then their government rejected Catholics to the point that there was something called the Cristero War, where they were killing priests and they outlawed Catholicism in most states, and you just were not allowed to be Catholic for about 10 years. And the Catholics rose up and had a war against the government, and now it's this contentious thing. Priests weren't allowed to wear the Roman collar for many decades. Mexican history goes back and forth, trying to figure out who they are. But they're in this process constantly, even still, of figuring out what it means to be them, what it means to be this new people. And I would say, even though our history in this part of North America is different, all of us are still defined by this encounter, right? This encounter. There's not as much mixing, there's not as much of a new people coming forth from 2 people who mix together, and yet we're all defined by it. Those of us like myself who have European heritage, my family got here 150 years ago, and they settled in Ferndale in the 1870s, and so they have been marked their entire history by an encounter with both the German and Irish settlers in Ferndale that I inherit from, but also they were married in this church, in an Indian church, because you can't come to Ferndale and not interact with, and especially if you're Catholic, worship with the Native Americans. All of us are products of the encounters that we have had. So, I'm not going to do the full truth and reconciliation thing today. We will have to confront the rest of that history at a deeper time where we have more time to listen to each other. Where I'm going with this is the way we emerge from an encounter is what Jesus is talking about in our gospel with the light of the world and the salt of the earth. We have to decide what our light is to the rest of the world. The world is in darkness. We all know people who are struggling deeply in so many ways. And you can just name it, whether it's a physical difficulty or an emotional difficulty or a spiritual difficulty. There is so much darkness that people are dealing with. We have encountered Christ. We have encountered Christ, and we are different because of it. We are new people because of that encounter with Jesus. And that encounter with Jesus gives us a light. And we have to define for ourselves, based on that encounter, what is that light going to be? What is our identity as people who have encountered Jesus Christ? When he says that we're a city on a hill, what he means is, imagine in the ancient world, no electricity, no street lights. You had the moon and the stars, sometimes, depending on the moon cycle. But if you're out at night, and you shouldn't be, because that's where the robbers are, but if you're out at night and you're lost and you're looking around, what you're going to see is the only source of light, which would be a city. And even that city wouldn't have very many, but they would have watch lights around the walls of their city. And you would see that miles and miles in the distance. And you would have a way of finding refuge and salvation. You'd say, okay, that's where I'm headed. That's where I'm trying to go. Surrounded by darkness, I don't know what to do, but that's where I'm headed. We, those who have encountered Jesus and have been made new in Jesus, who are different because of our relationship with Jesus, we are that light. And we have to live our lives like that light. We have to say, if somebody is in darkness and they're looking for light, where are they going to look? We have to say, look to us. Look to those who know Jesus. Look to those who can say, this is what it looks like to have grace, to have direction, to know our Creator and to know what He did for us, to know what it looks like to rely on the Lord. Look to that light. All of us struggle to define ourselves. We don't know who we are. We have all of these influences. We have, again, our ethnic background, our historical background, but we also have our family background. Some of us, like me, I come from a mixed religious background. My mom's Catholic, my dad's Protestant. What does that mean for me? How do I figure out my own identity? I think I've resolved it pretty well. You can tell the decision I made, but nonetheless, right? Like, we have to make that decision based on all of our influences and who we are, and then the encounters we've had. The most important encounter we've had as Christians is the encounter we've had with Jesus Christ. And that encounter fills us with light, and that light is intended for others. Can we bring others to an encounter with Jesus Christ? Can we help them to know the salvation that He brings, the light and the direction that He brings? Can we tell them what it looks like for us to have encountered Jesus? Again, my encounter with Jesus, coming from a mixed religious family, will be different from somebody who was raised Catholic from the beginning. And my encounter will be different because of my heritage than the heritage of somebody who was raised here at Lummi on the reservation. It's the same Jesus, but we encounter Him in different ways. But all of us, once we've encountered Him, we are a light to the people around us. Today, we are baptizing these two wonderful children. They have come to us from their different families and their different backgrounds to encounter Jesus. Their families have been encountering Jesus in our Thursday night classes, where we're just trying to bring people into that encounter, to teach them about the faith, and to bring them into the grace of the sacraments. These two families have been walking with us on these Thursdays. And there are all kinds of sacraments that still have to happen. We've got baptisms coming up on the Easter Vigil. We've got confirmations when the bishop gets here. But these two are the fruit of that encounter. Their parents, their family, their friends, they've encountered Jesus. Because of that encounter, because of that light, these folks came to the church to experience the light of Christ. And today these two are going to receive that light inside of them for the rest of their lives. Baptism is permanent. It's eternal. Your soul is changed. From today forward, these two are going to be a window shining forth the light of Christ within them. We are so thankful to bring them into the body of Christ, to give them that encounter with Jesus, and to allow them to then shine forth to their family, friends, and the rest of the world.